All right, let's discuss the shocking news that is the Titans firing Mike Vrabel. What I want to focus on is what's next for the former Titans head coach. Where will he be coaching in 2024? This, to me, is going to be a coaching search unlike one we've seen in a long time. One of the reasons is he is flat out, I think, one of the best coaches in the NFL, period. He is one of the best coaches in the NFL. And what makes him one of the best coaches in the NFL is that I think he does an elite job at getting the most talent out of the roster. Like you saw Tennessee the last few years. Not very talented. Didn't win a lot, but they were competitive. And I think he does a great job, Vrabel it is, of squeezing every ounce of talent out of the roster he's been given. And so that to me is what makes him one of the best coaches in the NFL. And that makes him right now the best head coach on the market. I think his stock is higher than Jim Harbaugh's. It's better than Bill Belichick's. I think right now Vrabel is number one on almost any team with a head coach opening, number one on their list. But what I want to talk about is, because I said it before, this is going to be a coaching search unlike any other. Because not only is Vrabel right now, I think, the best coach on the market, he is a caliber of coach that rarely becomes available, that is rarely fired, that I think he changes the way other teams that don't currently have a head coach opening, how they view their current head coach. Like Vrabel is a good enough head coach where teams that weren't considering firing their head coach now are all of a sudden reconsidering, and I think would fire their coach in order to bring a guy like Mike Vrabel on board. And I have 4 teams right now that I think should absolutely fire their current head coach. They don't have any, right now, inclination, and they have no reason to fire their current coach as we speak, but should absolutely fire their coach right now to bring Mike Vrabel to their team. Those 4 teams are the Philadelphia Eagles, Chicago Bears, Dallas Cowboys, New York Jets. If we start in Philly, is there not a more perfect personality fit for a city than Mike Vrabel going to Philly? I mean, this is a guy who a few years ago said he would cut his penis off to win a Super Bowl. If that ain't Philly, I don't know what is. So I think from a personality perspective, he fits that city perfectly. He would come in and obviously be a huge upgrade for the defense, which has been one of the biggest reasons for the Eagles' collapse here down the stretch. He would get that defense turned around ASAP, and I think have them looking, if he was hired next year, have them in 2024 looking a lot like that Eagles defense looked in 2022, where it's ferocious, getting after the quarterback, and one of the best defenses in the league. And you also now give Vrabel in Philly, for the first time in his career as a head coach at least, a legitimate offense. Like Jalen Hurts is easily the best quarterback he's ever had. So Vrabel has a legitimate franchise quarterback, a real offense with legitimate weapons all over the offensive side of the football. I think this is a home run. I think it's a home run for both sides. Like this is a true win-win where Philly, you are upgrading, I think, massively over Nick Sirianni. And if you're Vrabel, you're going to a spot now where for a while in Tennessee, you are getting by basically riding Derrick Henry offensively and hoping Ryan Tannehill didn't throw an interception to lose the game. Now you go to Philly with Hurts, with A.J. Brown, who you know pretty well, Devontae Smith. Maybe we'll see what happens if DeAndre Swift is back. Still a good, aging, but still a good and talented offensive line. You got a lot of weapons there. And so I don't think the Eagles are going to fire Nick Sirianni, and I don't think they should fire Nick Sirianni at the end of the season, whether it ends in Tampa Bay, whether it ends in Dallas or San Francisco, wherever it may end. However the season ends for Philly, I don't think they should fire Nick Sirianni unless it's to hire Mike Vrabel. He is that caliber of coach that for a guy like Sirianni, I think he's SOL if Vrabel does indeed have interest in becoming the Eagles' next head coach. That's the only guy right now on the market. If I'm Philly, I'm firing Nick Sirianni for in order to hire. It is I think, a perfect marriage between Vrabel and the Eagles. If Philly doesn't make the call, doesn't make the move, the Chicago Bears absolutely should. Like, if we want to make a spirits reference here, Mike Vrabel is your top shelf, right? He is your Patron. He is your Belvedere. He's your Johnny Blue. He is top of the top. Matt Eberflus, he's more common. He's your Tito's. He's your Jameson. Hey, look, get the job done, but could you do better? Are there smoother options? Absolutely. And I think if you're the Bears, you now go for the top shelf. You got to reach for the top. You got to get, you have J-Mo right now. Go get yourself some Johnny Blue, and that's hiring Mike Vrabel. I think he would continue to build that defense, who did a really good job this year under Matt Eberflus. But here's the thing for the Bears that is the biggest reason why I think you move off of Eberflus and you bring in Vrabel, even though they're both defensive sides of the ball in terms of their primary coaching knowledge. The Bears, obviously, right, what's been talked about for a long time is the Bears not finding a franchise quarterback. I think the order of operations for the Bears to find a franchise quarterback goes as follows. Number one priority, getting the head coach right. Number two priority, getting the quarterback right. I think getting a great head coach will lead to getting a great quarterback. Bringing competency for the first time in a long time at the head coaching position, I think whether it's Justin Fields, whether it's Caleb Williams, whether it's another quarterback we're not talking about right now, free agent trade, maybe in the draft 2 or 3 years from now, that's the answer. Whatever and wherever the answer may be, a quarterback, I think you are more likely to hit when you have a competent head coach like Mike Vrabel running the ship. So I think the order of operations, if you're the Bears, is getting the head coach right. And I think if you do that, and you will if you hire Mike Vrabel to be your next head coach, I think from there, you will see a trickle-down effect that leads to getting the quarterback right. And so I would trust Vrabel to figure it out, and whether he wants to keep Fields, draft Caleb Williams, whatever it may be, I would trust that Vrabel would have the right plan in place and hire the right offensive coordinator to develop that quarterback to get the Bears, in their long and storied history, for the first time at least, getting themselves a true and real franchise quarterback. I think Vrabel's the answer there, and getting the head coach right is number one for the Bears, which would be Mike Vrabel. So Eberflus is not going to get fired, but again, with an opportunity now that I don't think many teams expected, and Mike Vrabel being available, that has to change your calculus. Bears should go all in on hiring Mike Vrabel. So should the Cowboys, man. If you look at Dallas, the biggest reason why they fall short in the postseason and underachieve come playoff time is because they're not a very buttoned up team. They're sloppy. They don't pay attention to a lot of the small details. Penalties are always a big issue now under Mike McCarthy. Fundamentals have been questionable at times. Clock management is a GD roller coaster. When it comes to Mike McCarthy late in games, you have no idea what this guy is thinking and what he's going to do to bungle the clock, but he's going to find a way to mess it up. Mike Vrabel checks all those boxes. He knows, and I think is really good at this, he focuses and has those fundamentals all locked up. That's a reason why I think Tennessee, you saw them go to the AFC title game in 2019. Why you see them get the number one seed despite Derrick Henry missing half the year in 2021. This is a team that does not beat themselves. This is a team that, again, Vrabel does a great job of getting the most talent out of. What have we been saying for Dallas for the past few years, even before McCarthy got there? This Dallas team always underachieved compared to the talent they have on the roster. It's not like the Cowboys have had bad rosters. Jerry deserves credit, or maybe we'll say the front office deserves credit, for building what is one of the most talented teams in the league year after year. But come playoff time, they never go as deep as they should. Why? In large part, they don't do these small things correct. And we see in the playoffs, those small things that you can get away with in the regular season, that you can just have your talent make up for against lesser teams, it's magnified when you're playing teams that are at your caliber or better. And so McCarthy, for me at least, has always come up short in those small areas that are so key to deciding who wins and advances, who loses and goes home. And that's why, for me, I look at Vrabel as a massive upgrade over Double M. If I'm Jerry, I'm pulling the trigger because also, too, if we're talking about another underachievement for the Cowboys, which is at this point not making the NFC title game bare minimum now that you're the 2 seed. Not anything short of being in San Francisco, massive failure. But even not being the 49ers, like at what point, if you're Jerry, you're going to say like, we just can't be second fiddle. We got to be able to overtake San Francisco. You're not making any roster changes to do that. You got Dak, you got CD, you got Micah Parsons. Like, there is not many roster moves you could make to put yourself in a position where you could beat the 49ers and go to the Super Bowl. The big change you can make or need to make is head coach. And that's why if I'm Jerry, I don't know how you sit there and say, I feel confident and comfortable in bringing Mike McCarthy back instead of firing him and bringing in Mike Vrabel. I don't get the argument for Jerry on bringing Double M back and not hiring Mike Vrabel. To me, it makes perfect sense, and in large part because he focuses on the fundamentals that have been problematic areas for Dallas in some of the biggest games of their season. Finally, the last team that absolutely should fire their head coach in order to hire Mike Vrabel, it's the Jets. Look, right now, New York made a deal with the devil. They made their bed, they're lying in it when they traded for Aaron Rodgers, and we saw on Hard Knocks, Aaron Rodgers is the center of that team. I mean, Robert Saleh might as well be a fan. He was fangirling around Aaron Rodgers and basically let Aaron run the team. Well, that's a problem because Aaron is one of the worst leaders in the NFL. He is awful. He is an awful leader, takes zero accountability, complete whack job as well. You can't have that guy being the face and the leader of your team when you have playoff and Super Bowl aspirations. That ain't going to work. And so you bring Mike Vrabel in. There is no doubt who the leader of the team is and what the culture is. Vrabel is a culture setter, and he's going to make sure Aaron falls in line. He's going to make sure the rest of the team fall in line and respect the coach, because right now, one of the things that we saw from Robert Saleh this year, team doesn't respect him. Rodgers doesn't respect him. None of the other teammates of Rodgers, I think, respect Robert Saleh. They're bringing him back in 2024. At least they've already announced it. I think in large part because Aaron Rodgers wants him back. In large part because Saleh lets Rodgers do whatever the hell he wants. I mean, he's sitting there promoting Rodgers on Pat McAfee, despite the fact that now he's talking about all this nonsense and all this other garbage. We're not going to get into that. That's a whole different pod for a whole different day. But you need, I think if you're the Jets, if you want to actually be true playoff contenders in 2024, you need leadership, first and foremost. Vrabel brings that, Saleh doesn't. So just from that perspective alone, the Jets should move off of Saleh and bring Mike Vrabel to town. He will make sure everyone is in line and everyone is focused. No excuse not to do it. So because now Vrabel, like the firing being so surprising, because I think he's one of the best coaches in the NFL, period, his firing now has to change the calculus of teams that were not anticipating fire their coach. Like Sirianni's under the microscope in Philly, but I don't think he was getting fired this year. Robert Saleh has already gotten the approval back. Jerry Jones says one day, we'll see how the postseason goes. Next day, that's out of context. Jerry every day is wishy-washy about the future of Mike McCarthy. And the Bears are bringing Eberflus back. But those are 4 teams and 4 head coaches that I don't think were anticipating a guy of Mike Vrabel's caliber, coaching caliber, him being available. Especially available for free, where you don't have to trade him whatsoever, which is even a bigger bonus. So now that you have one of the best coaches in the NFL available for free, all you have to do is fire your guy. Those 4 teams should absolutely tomorrow fire their head coach and bring Mike Vrabel to town. Eagles, Bears, Cowboys, Jets. No excuse not to do it. You got to bring Vrabel to town because I think he truly changes the trajectory of all 4 of those teams. No excuse not to do it. And that's why I think I said before in the open to kind of put a bow on this. That is why I think this coaching search is going to be one that we haven't seen before, and it's going to be different. Because Vrabel being the kind of coach that he is, I think now is going to change teams' thinking of, well, we weren't going to fire our coach, but if we can get Vrabel here, holy cow, we got to take that upgrade every single time. This may be our only opportunity to strike because Mike's going to get a job in 2024. The only question is where? Well, we better make sure it's with us. That's why I think Nick Sirianni's in trouble, Matt Eberflus is in trouble, Robert Saleh's in trouble, Mike McCarthy's in trouble. Last thing I want to say about the future of Mike Vrabel. The Patriots have been a very popular team thrown out here early on after Vrabel is fired as a popular landing spot for where he'll be coaching. The Patriots make no sense to me in terms of Vrabel coaching there. I get the connection, played there, his numbers are tired, Ring of Honor, he's close to Robert Kraft. But think about what Vrabel just experienced. He was fired for a lack of talent, which is not his responsibility. He's not Bill Belichick. He's not picking the players. There's a GM that was fired in John Robinson last year for having a poor roster. And then a year later, despite the roster not changing that much, he was fired because the team didn't win. So Vrabel got fired because the team stunk, even though he made them competitive. Why would he go to New England and go from a team with not a lot of talent in Tennessee to a team with even lesser talent and more problems on the offense in New England? Robert Kraft, and I think eventually moving off of Bill Belichick this offseason, is someone that is not complacent. He wants to win. And so he's not looking at the roster saying, well, the roster stinks, like, we're going to give Bill a pass here. I know Bill's the GM, so it's a little bit different. But Bill Belichick is being held responsible for wins and losses despite winning 6 titles. So if you're Vrabel, you can't go to New England thinking, I got a lifetime deal. Like, Robert's never going to fire me. He's about to fire Bill Belichick and move off of him. Trade him, fire him, same thing. You're moving off of the best head coach in NFL history. So there's no, I think, security blanket to where if you're Mike Vrabel, you got to think, if I don't win in 2 or 3 years, I'm going to be out. And so why would you go to a team with no quarterback, no run game, no pass weapons? Like, you're in a worse spot in New England than you were in Tennessee. Why would you sign up for that? Especially with, teams like the Chargers are going to go all in. Commanders go all in. And again, I think a lot of teams right now with head coaches, I think bare minimum should kick the can of using back channels to bring Mike Vrabel in. He's going to be in too high of a demand to settle on going to the Patriots. I don't care about the relationship with Robert Kraft. I don't think that's going to be enough to get him to New England because I don't think he's desperate enough to just take any job. He's going to have his pick of the litter, and he's going to have a much better landing spot with a much better offensive weaponry at his disposal than he would in New England. So there's a connection. I don't see Vrabel going to New England whatsoever. 4 teams to watch for: Eagles, Bears, Cowboys, Jets. All currently have head coaches employed. I think all 4 would and should fire their head coach to bring Vrabel to town.